Welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Sarah Lunsford, and today we're going to be talking about martial arts with Phil Weaver and Antone Azcevedo. How do I pronounce your last name?
Azcevedo.
Azcevedo. Okay. So first of all, Phil, what type of martial arts are you involved with?
We consider it we typically call it a fighting art.
Okay.
And I can give reasons why. But it's called Shoshu.
Shoshu, okay.
And that means beast art or beast magic.
Okay.
It is has its roots in Mandarin China and probably passing before that probably going back into ancient Egypt.
Okay. So there are different types of martial arts. So how did you end up getting into this particular line, so to speak?
Pure chance.
Okay.
It was, I had just graduated high school. I'd just come to Calaveras County. It was, I had at that time probably not running with the greatest of crowds.
Okay.
Which was just chance. I wasn't a bad kid growing up or anything. Yeah. But I happened to, when I came here, that's where the people I met and started running with them. They were doing a lot of bad things, and when I first moved here, I actually tried to escape Calaveras for several. I broke down here. I came to visit my mother. My car broke down when I got here. Okay. I had to be back at work on the next Monday morning, and that wasn't happening. So, took a couple of weeks fixing the car, and actually when I took off, it broke down again on the Fresno, and I ended up back. But during all this time, there was an old man across the street, and they were working on an old crane, like an old diesel crane, and they had it stuck in the mud. And so we were kind of going, I'm working on my car, and he's over there. And I kind of got to know him. Well, actually, I hadn't known him at that time, but I walked over, and they had been actually literally pulling trees down on themselves, trying to get this thing out of the mud. It was a week this has been going on, and I realized, having been around them, that the clutch was slipping. So the guy I was with, he jumped up and tightened up the clutch and drove it out. Okay. That was the beginning of our friendship. So for about 2 years, I knew this older guy, and he told all these martial arts stories, and just incredulous stories. And I never believed any of them. But he was a really neat old guy, and the stories were great, so I listened, and I helped him out and did this. And about that time, I lost my eye. I lost it during surgery, and from an accident and then surgery, and lost a lot of self-confidence. Was wearing a patch over one eye, and just was, and still running with this crowd. And he just snatched me out of there and got me into martial arts. He actually said, "You will come visit me at this event, and here's, I'm used to this guy in holey jeans, in a greasy shirt, a straw hat that's just beat up." And so he goes, "Show up at this place." And I drive in, and there's people in gis, probably 500-600 of them everywhere. Black belts, these really tough looking guys, and they're doing these really crazy moves. And I find him, and he's in this fancy silk gi. I'm just completely blown away. And so he goes, "Walk with me." And I walk with him, and everywhere he went, people just stopped, and they just absolutely every word he said, they would just stop and listen to every word, and I was just completely blown away. Obviously, the stories were true. And then he would walk around, and these guys this was in the late '80s. A lot of really big, tough guys, and he'd walk around and just throw them all over, and so that was my start. And how many years? Because you're a black belt. You're more than a black belt, aren't you? I've got a few of them,
yeah. That's what I thought. So how many years have you been in this discipline now?
That was 1988.
So quite a while.
30 now, yeah.
And you, when did you actually start taking on students yourself?
We opened a school in '95.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've seen a lot of students come through of varying ages.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Originally, when we started, the art was not taught to children.
Okay.
Which was, if you go back through the, kind of the history of the martial art, in the 70s is when they began teaching kids. It was when the Karate Kid came out.
Okay. All right.
Before that, it was really just mostly men in garages and boxing gyms and that sort of thing. And then the Karate Kid is what brought the children in. And of course there was a lot of revenue to be made there, so most schools jumped on that bandwagon.
Okay.
Our particular art didn't, but when I had opened up in Burson, we started experimenting with it, and we did teach kids quite successfully. We transformed a lot of kids and did a lot for 20 years.
Okay. So then how did you get involved with this art, Antone?
I was at another school because I recently had gotten in trouble at my former one.
Okay.
And so I was picked on a lot, and I roamed around with the wrong crowd. And so my principal, actually, who has worked with Shun Shifu before, said that I should take up on this art. He said I should try it out, and if I don't like it, I don't like it, but I think he thought I would like it.
Okay. So when you first sort of, now it's not actually Phil that teaches you, it's one of your people.
One of my students.
One of your students. I'm not quite sure what to term. One of your people, one of your students. So it's actually a student who's in between you and Phil, right? Okay. So when you first decided you were going to do this, were you a little skeptical about it?
I was a bit hesitant on it.
Okay. So what made you decide that maybe you would kind of like this sort of thing?
I thought it would be something to do rather than just sitting in my house trying out a new activity.
Okay. But it's very discipline orientated. And did you actually like that about it?
I never really thought about that at the time, really.
Okay. So what do you start with? Let's say you have Antone. What do you start with him?
We actually developed a curriculum for beginners.
Okay.
The art was taught jumping. It's like I said, a beast art.
Okay.
Several different beasts. And when I jumped in, the first technique that I learned, which was rising knee, was extremely difficult. And I remember my first lesson thinking through the middle of the lesson going, this is too hard. As soon as I get out, I'm never coming back.
Okay.
I mean, it was just trying to coordinate my body that way and all that. But, I had a responsibility to my mentor who had brought me in, so I went back, obviously. And that was pretty common for that level of difficulty. So we actually developed some more. When you take the art is based, it's actually 7 different arts.
Okay.
And those combine into another art. And so you have essentially, everything is based upon physics, of course, but there's 7 different sets of physics. Not 7 different sets of physics. I mean, physics is physics, but moving in different ways of moving your body that would follow a certain set of rules.
Okay.
So there being 7 beasts, there's 7 sets of rules.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. And so the art is mixed, and that's the way it was taught, mixing these.
Okay.
And so that made it extremely confusing because we're going by this rule set, and then we're going by that rule set, and sometimes we combine them, and extremely. So what we did is we took just the first beast, which is the bear, and made a curriculum, which was material that was normally taught, but just kind of mixed in.
Okay.
And we made a beginning curriculum out of that, and that made it much easier. So there's actually about a year's worth of training before getting into the training that I started.
You started with. Okay. So now, how long have you been doing the training?
I've been doing Shoshu for about 2 years now.
2 years. So you went through the bear. So then what's the next beast?
Then you get into the mixed beasts.
The mixed beasts.
Yeah.
Okay. So
at that point, you don't really understand, when you're as a student, you don't understand which beast you're doing or anything that.
All right.
That comes mostly after black belt. Then you start to separate them and understand them individually at that point.
Okay. So then how did this affect your life? If your principal, it was your principal who suggested that you take this, and in the 2 years that you've been taking it, how has your life changed?
I started to get more mature. I started taking things more seriously. This was one of the things that made me change. And then once I was told that I had a chance to go back into a public school, I wanted to take that chance and see if I really had matured enough to be at a public school rather than being at the school that I was at then.
Okay. So what is it about this art that made you mature?
The fact that what it taught me, how my posture was, how I acted around others, how others would act around me, that was one of the big things that it told me.
So, what I'm hearing you say is that the more you learned in your mind, the more you put it together with your body, the more you projected your own self-confidence in who you are, then people reacted to that in kind. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. I just want to clarify for myself. So, and you're back into public school now?
Yes.
And so how are you doing in public school now?
Roughly, but I'm trying to improve myself.
Okay, but it's a process.
Yes.
Okay. So are you seeing with the mind-body connection, that's kind of the force that pushes maturity within the art?
There's a number of factors, and that's of course a huge one.
Okay.
That's a very big one. The mind-body, there's, when you say mind-body, that's actually incorporates a lot of different things. And some of the major things, like he talks about the posture and all that. One way you can look at it as it's a positive feedback loop. Okay. We think of ourselves as our mind controlling our body, and it's not so much. Okay. But it's not the body controlling the mind either. Okay. Essentially, and this has been in recent neuroscience, they talk about the mind will send signals to the body and then check back in with it. Okay. Okay, and this is one of the reasons that mind-body relaxation techniques work. So when we tap into our we get our parasympathetic system. The mind will check and say, "Are we breathing hard? What's our posture like? Are our calves tense?" Because those would be fight or flight muscles, things like that. And so we can consciously control those things. We can consciously control our breathing rate. We can consciously be in our body, right? And control those things. And that actually sends a signal back to the mind. Okay. And so it's a loop. It's a loop. It goes back and forth. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And being a positive feedback loop, if you're in a negative cycle, it's going to continue to cycle downward, right? Okay. And vice versa. Okay. And so it's really easy. It's the easiest access. Our emotions are really more in control than our logical mind, right? The thoughts kind of emanate out to match our emotional state. And we can't control our emotions with our logic, okay? But we can control our emotions with our body. Okay. And that is one of the major factors of mind-body. Okay. Is that once you learn how to move your body, to have good posture, to move yourself in a powerful way. If you can move in a powerful way, you will feel powerful or confident. Okay. And once you're confident, then you're not going to react to a fight or flight stimulus. Okay. So you're protecting yourself to a certain degree. Yeah. A little bit. Protecting yourself. That you don't have the fight or flight stimulated. Yeah. By being confident. Yeah. So we all have triggers that are going to trigger that, right? And depending on our own level of of body awareness or control over our mind, those triggers are going to be either pretty hair triggers, or we can control them. Violence has been a part of human history since before human, obviously, right? We came out of the trees and defended ourselves with violence. That's how we have survived. So, and we know traits like that can be they've done experiments with animals where they've bred those, or you can see, dogs that have become violent in a couple generations.
Yeah.
So epigenetics says that these things can turn on very, very quickly. So violence going back, I mean, it's in us. It's a part of humans. And so rather than running from it, once we learn about it, and you can then learn to control it. Like I had a very fast temper.
Okay.
I'm very hot temper, and when you get into that, you think of a crime of rage or anything like that, and we talk about people being mentally insane in those moments, right? And which is true.
Yeah.
Those emotions are in control. What I find, and people who have trained in martial arts for some period, they talk about it like a switch.
Okay.
Like that rage is still there.
Okay.
But I finally have control of the switch.
Okay.
Because rage, it can be a tool, right? If you needed it, it's there for a reason. It's when you have no control of it.
So by learning this martial art, you actually are figuring out that you have a switch.
You do.
And you're able to turn it on and off at will.
Absolutely.
Now, is that what you found as well in the 2 years you've been doing it?
A little bit.
Okay.
I don't
But
know
it
that
takes
at
a
that
long.
level
Yeah,
he
I'm
would
wondering.
be aware of it.
Yeah, but he seems pretty aware.
He's doing exceptionally well. Yeah.
But it is. I mean, it's worth pointing out that you've been doing this for 30 years. Yeah, it's not a system that you just get into and get out of, right? It's a life.
No, this
it's
is
your
something
lifelong,
that you would,
system type of thing.
Right. And the way we teach, that's the type of student we're looking for.
Okay.
That's what we do. Is we only take on a select few people that really want to, be a disciple, who want to really be into it.
So what was in Antone? Hello, Sarah. What was in Antone? What did you see in him that made you think that he would be a good fit?
It was his principal that convinced us.
Oh, okay.
A phone call from his principal and giving his background. And his principal is a longtime martial artist as well. Okay. And so I actually taught him, but he had studied martial arts before I taught him for a good 20 years and was very knowledgeable, very skilled. And so he called us, and I respected his opinion. Okay. And gave me the story of what he had been through. Okay. And so we took him in through a couple of interviews after that, but we were pretty sure after we heard from him that we would take him.
So you must have known your principal pretty well. Were you in his office a lot?
I tried not to go in. I saw him actually last weekend at a play.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So he saw in you the raw material, so to speak.
I believe so.
Okay. So there was something in you, but since we can't talk to him, we're not quite sure, I mean, we could give our assumptions, but, and it's a good fit. Okay. So
that's one of the reasons we will take in at-risk youth, because there are quite a number of him out there. There are, when you've had a rough life, your perspective is completely different.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you have no power, and you find something that's going to empower you, you do tend to latch on to it.
You go towards the thing that's going to give you power to do what you think you need to do.
Yeah. And when you've grown up, when you go through a lot of emotional stuff, and you're trying to control your own emotions, and you find this thing that all of a sudden it makes you feel good. I mean, you walk out of a lesson in Shoshu feeling just ecstatic.
Okay.
It's really, it's a drug. It gets our endorphins pumping. It gets you're constantly learning. You begin the class and you're looking at something that looks like I'll never be able to do that, and an hour, 2 hours later, you're able to do it. And so through that sense of accomplishment every night, and problem solving.
Okay.
The experience of a light bulb coming on.
Okay.
Is, that's an endorphin rush.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience, which everybody has had, you'll have continually over and over in Shoshu.
Okay.
And that builds the desire to learn.
Okay.
Essentially, you're becoming addicted
to that feeling.
To the feeling
of positive reinforcement.
Of positive reinforcement, yes.
Okay.
And it's how our brain works.
All right. How difficult was it to learn the moves initially?
At first, I didn't even understand what was being told to me.
Okay.
It was really confusing. I didn't really enjoy it at all. I'm like, what is this?
It's typical.
So you kept going back, though.
Yes.
And as you went back, did you start to see like a method to the madness?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started getting a hang of it.
All right.
Still difficult.
Yeah. And then did you practice at home too, or?
Sometimes, whenever I had nothing to do.
Okay. Okay. So how often do you actually go into the studio? I'm assuming you go into a studio.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
Okay. So where do you take your classes then?
At one of his students' houses.
Okay. All right. So how often do you go and actually learn?
Every week.
Once a week or
Yes.
once a week? Okay. How long are those sessions?
Usually 2 hours.
Okay, so that's 2 intensive hours though.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very intensive hours. So you're probably exhausted when you're done.
Oh, yes.
Exhausted and exhilarated. So now you're actually going back to a public school.
Yes.
All right. And what grade are you in?
I'm in 9th.
You're in 9th grade. Okay, so you're just starting out in high school then.
Yes.
Okay. And you said it's a little bit of a rough transition. Mm-hmm. But does having this experience actually kind of give you the confidence to push through even the rough points?
It's one of the things that helps me move forward.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a personal question here. With your family, are they another source of positive reinforcement for you?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I care about my family deeply.
Okay. So you have a couple things going for you besides your own self, right? Okay. So are you seeing that with a lot of the students who do succeed, the ones that are, I hate the term at risk.
I know.
But the at-risk students, that they have not just the martial arts, but they also have someone who believes in them as well?
What we have found is that we are successful with them if at least they don't have a detractor.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of times when you have a family that, it's just that will draw you away from the positive.
Okay.
When families are like that, and his is not.
Mm-hmm.
His mom's very supportive. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what we gauge in taking somebody in is how much, and which is a reason for the 2-hour lessons, and that is that how much influence can we have versus or can we draw him away from the negative influences?
Okay.
We found that with children that if you have, we had a lot of children that were children of drug addicts or alcoholic, and when they would get home, we found that if the parents just ignored them, we were successful with them. But if they started teasing them about it and doing that, then it was very difficult for us.
Okay. So as long as there's not a detractor, that's good. Mm-hmm. But if there's a reinforcer, that's even better.
That's even better. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then has participating in this discipline given you like more of a hope for a future, like finishing high school, going on to college?
Yes, it has.
Okay. So you have a plan?
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't have it before? Or did you? You just weren't sure how to get there?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It wasn't set, though.
Okay. Because I imagine that's part of it as well. If you're successful in a discipline that's actually this difficult, then you know you can be successful in other areas of life.
Absolutely.
Okay. And is that what you found too, just doing what you're doing now?
Yes.
Okay. So would you recommend other people actually participate, or?
I would.
Okay.
I would. Depends on the people that I know.
Okay. So now we talked off camera, and you said that you have a foundation that actually helps kids to get involved. So what is that, and how does that process work?
When we ran a commercial school, we used to bring in a lot of kids through the foundation like that. Now we do it in the same way that I teach it, and we just take a few on and work very hard on those individuals.
Okay.
The idea behind that is that, when you spread it out, it's great to touch a lot of people, but when you concentrate on a few individuals, those individuals are going to master the art, which I hate that word, but and really get a lot of benefit. They will then in turn turn around and do the same.
Okay.
And that is just how it's been. That's really how it's been going for thousands of years. You know?
All right.
The mentors taking on students and developing them.
Okay. So a smaller number, but a larger reach.
A more intense reach.
A more intense reach.
Yes, it should be. It's a bigger reach in society because of more influence.
Okay.
We've seen people, when you take somebody that would have gone and been somehow dependent on the system into a productive individual who will then turn other people who would have depended on the system into productive individuals. That's a pretty big impact.
It's a huge impact. And so you see that actually continuing then?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What I'm personally enjoying seeing now is watching the joy in his instructors.
Okay.
Because they get it now.
Okay.
It really is one of the best, absolutely the best feelings that you can have, is to see an individual take off like that. That you know where they started, and then all of a sudden they're getting it. They've changed. They've changed as a person.
Okay.
They move beautifully in the art and all that.
Okay.
And when you see that, it's very emotional.
And they grow into their potential.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I saw that in his instructor's eyes. Oh. And when I see that, that's the next generation taking over.
So if somebody maybe wanted to get in contact with you, because we only have a couple more minutes, to talk about possibly being in the art, because you take older people too.
We actually went back to teaching. We only take on adults as students. Okay. Which is traditionally how it was when my grandmaster learned. The average beginning age was 29.
Okay.
And so that's generally what we take on, is in that 29 and above.
Okay.
And then we will take on through the foundation the kids his age.
Okay.
But we generally, what we'll do is match them up with mentors that are also students.
Okay. And then how would they get in touch with you?
Through the website would be go to the Shang-Chi Foundation website.
Okay. And is that www.shangchi
Yes, shangchifoundation.org.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Also shoshu.com.
Okay.
We have lessons there. So,
okay. Well, thank you both for coming on the show and telling your story, so I appreciate it. And thank you for watching Inside View. I hope you have a good day.